How far is the Utah Jazz rebuilding process set back by the tragic injury to Taylor Hendricks? The tough conversation next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and on YouTube every day. Plus, we have the free daily newsletter, Locked on Jazz, which is available by going to lockedondaily.com. Go to lockedondaily.com to get that to the everydayers. You're the best. Thanks for being with us every day. Love the community we've built over the years. Here's the plan for today's show. We'll look at if we have time, we'll look at the worry meter of about 4 teams in the NBA and why Phoenix is so good so far. We'll get you ready for the Spurs tip-off 7 o'clock tonight. Victor Wembanyama is in town, but he's feeling a little lost. His own quote, just feeling a little lost. So what's going on with that in the Spurs as the Jazz have a chance to get one? Jazz offense is currently last in the NBA by a fairly considerable margin, 96.5 points per 100 possessions. The next worst is Portland at 103, nearly 7 points worse than anyone else in the NBA. What has to happen to get the offense going a little bit for the Utah Jazz? But we're going to start with the unfortunate reality of the injury of Taylor Hendricks. It happened earlier this week when Taylor Hendricks went down in Dallas, and now we actually have to address the long-term impact, not of Taylor's comeback. I don't have any knowledge of that, but you can start to piece together what it means for Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith and Ashley Smith and the long-term of the franchise. So the first thing, if we're being honest, is that in regards to putting together a package for another player, a Jalen Green becomes available in Houston because they don't want to, I don't know, just he signed, but, that concept. De'Aaron Fox suddenly is available in Sacramento, whatever player you might want to go to. Maybe you need something better than both of those. The Jazz really at this point only have 1.5, 2 if you count Lowry, but he's off the market for the year, tradable assets that could garner them first-round picks or high-quality players. So Walker could maybe get you a low first-round pick at this point. Lowry can get you a package, and Taylor's was one of them. Taylor Hendricks in a package as a tradable asset for the Utah Jazz in the rebuild process was a very important piece. I'm not saying they were ever going to do it. I'm not saying they were ever going to trade Taylor. Taylor's we'll get to part 2 here. Taylor's such a unique body that you may never have traded him. But in regards to tradable assets, pieces of the puzzle, assets when you look down the Jazz list of things, if they were going to do something other than just draft players and start to piece together things, we have the Minnesota and the Cleveland draft picks, which have probably not a ton of value right now. Cleveland looks like they're the best team in the NBA this side of Boston. Minnesota's going to win 50-plus games this year. Neither of those picks are expected to be anywhere other than the 20s. And then, frankly, until Donovan or Anthony Edwards leaves, the 27 pick and the pick swaps, 26 pick swaps don't look particularly appealing. 27 picks probably are still in the 20s. Maybe we get something as you move down the road a little bit. The Laker draft pick still has a lot of appeal to it. Looks like it's a real possibility of what we might be able to get somewhere along the way. That's kind of that's probably our most appealing piece, and our own draft picks. But we're not going to give away in the middle of a rebuild the control of our own draft picks. So therefore, Taylor Hendricks was unique in the desire of teams that they would be interested in trading for Taylor Hendricks. And the reason that Taylor Hendricks is the one piece is because of his body, because of the reason he goes 6'9", he goes 9th in the draft. Taylor Hendricks is 6'9", 210 pounds, had already shown he could guard 1 through 4. Probably as he gets a little bigger, he could guard 1 through 5. And you just can't find guys like that. And so from a standpoint of our rebuild, regardless of whether you might ever trade Taylor, Taylor was the unique piece to the puzzle. There's a reason why Keyonte George, who was so much more ready than Taylor Hendricks to play, goes 16 and Taylor goes 9. Because you can find a Keyonte George. You can't find 6'9", 210. In fact, I'm not sure 6'9", 210 existed in this year's draft. In the last draft, I'm not sure there's a single body that got drafted that's as good as Taylor Hendricks. I'm trying to think. Maybe Alex Sarr, and he went 1. Right? Maybe. Alex Sarr's pretty impressive. 7 feet, 210. Pretty neat. And he actually went 3, right? He wouldn't go 1. Rosh Hashanah went 1. But Taylor's body, it was of the pieces of our puzzle right now, of the 7 Walkers, put Walker aside. Of the 6 pieces that we're watching develop, Taylor has the biggest upside of any of them. Cody's next because their bodies are different. And unless Keontae's skill becomes that of like a Donovan Mitchell skill, then it doesn't override how special the bodies are of the other guys. And the third thing, so you've lost probably the most important prospect for some time. The third thing is just the developmental process. If you kind of look at how teams go through it and try to get out of it, you're trying to add a piece a year. Major League Baseball, they used to talk about you added a positional player every season or in the pitcher every season. And then if you could occasionally get a second positional player, you were in pretty good shape. For the NBA, it's why Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck's approach of having 3 draft picks in every season is so important, is you're really trying to get a player a year. And when you're like Sacramento for these years and everyone who's like drafting 1 player a year and then you miss a bunch of times, then you're really stalled. Now, none of this is to say whether or not Taylor, who frankly, was shooting 22% from the field and 25% from 3, was going to be this guy. It was just the chance. And so we're trying to add a piece a year. And if you kind of look at the way the rebuild's gone, you added Lowry right out of the chute. That was a pretty important piece. Then you picked up draft picks in Walker and Ochai, and Walker's going to be we don't know yet whether Walker's a 20-minute-a-night piece or a 30-minute-a-night piece, but Walker's going to be a rotational NBA player. And then you're hoping that Hendricks, Keyonte, or Bryce can be a piece, but someone's got to be a good-sized piece at some point. Someone's got to be a 33, 34-minute-a-night piece. Got one in Lowry. You're hoping that Cody, Isaiah, or Kyle could be one of those people. And now all of a sudden you're 3 years into a rebuild and you've got the piece in Lowry. You've got 3-4 other pieces. You go get a really good draft pick this year. Now you're starting to see it, and then you can start filling in around it. That's the process. There's a chance, depending on what happens now we're down to Keyonte or Bryce for that piece that year. So that's the impact. And then the timing on it contractually is difficult. So 24-25 season's out this year. Taylor has now, in 2 years, will have played 931 minutes. And we talked a lot about how he really needs to play like 1,800 solid minutes of a year and learn. He has a steep learning curve still. And the 26-27 season, it's unclear. So the 25-26, 24-25 is out. 24-25 season or 25-26 season, you would hope it's still development and it's rehab. And this is unclear. There's some supposition here. I'm not sure that's a great evaluation season. So we have a club option for the 26-27 season. You're certainly going to pick that up for $7.8 million. I would think. I would hope. And so the 26-27 season really becomes the evaluation. And then he's extension eligible in 26-27. I don't know that you're going to be able to act on him. He's an unrestricted free agent in 27-28. So the crazy thing here is right when you now begin to be able to put an evaluation process down on him, he's an unrestricted free agent. Maybe you're going to, Danny and Justin and Ryan and Ashley are pretty creative and good at this stuff. Maybe you're going to be able to find a way that you can get a contract extension done prior to that. But based on the 25-26 season, that feels hard. So it is what it is. It's too bad. And obviously there's a human element here that Taylor that's far more important than any of what we're talking about. But from a franchise standpoint, it could mean that you're set back an entire year plus of the process. All right, let's get the offense rolling. How do we do it? Some ideas. Will Hardy had an idea, but I'm not sure how he can execute it. Next on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On and the America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, if you want to get into the action on all the weekend activity, the NFL, some NBA games, you can do it over at FanDuel right now. FanDuel gives you everything you need in one place to get all your live bets in. Because right now with new customers, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So tackle the NBA, tackle the NFL season with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, do live play-by-play, and so much more, all on one page at FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. And if you win your first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On Podcast Network. Jazz tonight are a 2-point favorite for the first time all year. Will be a favorite. Spurs on a back end of a back-to-back. Spurs have not been favored in any game all season long. So the Jazz are a 2-point favorite tonight against the San Antonio Spurs at FanDuel.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. If you've missed it, we have brand new daily free newsletters out for all of our NBA teams. And that includes, for those who are long-timers, everydayers, I'm doing Empty the Noggin again after every Jazz game. So tomorrow's newsletter will get you Empty the Noggin from tonight's Spurs game. So feel free to sign up at LockedOnDaily.com. All right, the Jazz offense. 96.2 right now is our offensive rating. This won't last because it would be the worst offense, I think, in the NBA in can't figure out how many years. I couldn't find it. We're 7 points worse than Portland and New Orleans and San Antonio, who are the next worst offenses as a team. Tonight we have offensive team 27 versus 30. Okay, we're doing some things great. We're getting to the free throw line at a really, really high rate. So that's great. Our percentage of our points coming at the free throw line is one of the highest of anyone in the league. Our percentage of our points coming in fast break is 22nd in the league. So that's actually a little bit better. We're not as badly slow-paced as we were. Our percentage of our points coming on layups or dunks is 7th best in the NBA. So it really comes down to our ability to shoot and get some decent looks. But right now, the issue very clearly is our ability to shoot. We're shooting 28.5% from three, which is 29th in the NBA. Only Philadelphia is worse at 27.7. And Oklahoma City is actually right there with us. Now, some of it's we're not getting great looks, and some of it we're just not making shots. There is actually a metric that allows us to look at this to try to figure out what's going on with it. And that is, you can look at, it's called QSQ. You can decide what you think of it. Generally, most teams in the league kind of believe in it. And the QSQ is what your shot quality is. So right now, the Warriors have the best shot quality in the NBA. Cleveland has second best, and Cleveland's shooting 8% better than our shot quality. Our shot quality is not great. It's 26th in the NBA, okay? So that's the first thing we have to do offensively is we have to improve our shot quality. If we can improve our shot quality while also still going to the free throw line, the rate that we're doing it, that's a pretty good script to getting better. QSI tells you how you're shooting. Okay, we're shooting negative 6.3%. So we're 6.3 percentage points below our expected value, which is by far the worst in the NBA. Denver's at negative 3.5, Portland's at negative 3.3, Rockets at negative 3, Oklahoma City's at negative 2.6. Those teams, all these teams are extreme. They'll straighten out. By the way, on the other end, which is probably important just to know who and what's playing well, there are 8 teams are shooting particularly well, maybe better than you can anticipate. Cleveland's 7 points better than their average. Knicks are 7 points better than their average. Phoenix is 4. Sacramento's 4. Minnesota's 4. Boston's 3.5. Charlotte's 3.5. And Milwaukee's 3.5. So keep an eye on that because it's probably coming back. Those are probably coming down. For example, last year, the best shooting team in the league was Milwaukee, 3 points above their average. And the worst was Toronto, who was only minus 1.7. Okay. So Toronto last year was minus 1.7 below their expected shot value, the worst in the league. So they're the worst shooting team in the league based on expected shot value. And if we go down the years and look, that was better than most. Houston Rockets, who might be a good comp to us 2 years ago with all their young players, was a minus 3. And Toronto that next year was a minus 2.9. They haven't been able to shoot. And the Hornets, who were young, were minus 2.6. So when you start to look over the years, like, okay, it's nice of you to say, David, like, we'll get better. What's realistic? It is realistic that we'll get 3 or 4 percentage points better on our average shooting than we are right now. No team is a minus 7 for the entire year. That's probably impossible. Some of the worst teams that we've seen, the Thunder a few years ago when they were really, really bad, were a minus 5. So I guess that's possible. But most teams are about minus 4 or minus 3. So there's some level where, okay, one thing Will Hardy kind of keeps talking about, the ball's just not quite going in. Our effective field goal percentage is 44.5. And I think it's fair to say that it probably could go to 47 or 48. That's not super great. If we get to 47 or 48, we're still going to be 28th in the league in shooting. So the first thing we've got to do is get better expected shot value, or considering how young we are, considering how youthful, considering some of the things we're doing, making Lowry play isolation, even, to learn over efficiency at times, I think is a fair way to say that. Right now on 11 isolation plays, Lowry's getting 0.3 points per chance. He's about, 2 for 11 on those. We're just not, we've got to get a little bit better shot quality. And what I mean by that is the layups and dunks is good to see. We've got to get out of the mid range. We've got to stop taking pull up 2s. We've got to get back to taking catch and shoot, as many catch and shoot 3s as we possibly can. Those are the things that'll bring us back around a little bit. But honestly, kind of, if you look at where we are as a team and how young we are, and we just looked at Houston and Oklahoma City and similar teams to us, yeah, like there's a chance we're 3 or 4 percentage points below our expected value of shooting. And so, yes, we've got to fix our expected value. But even if you fix our expected value, we may very well struggle all season long offensively. Right now on catch and shoot 3s, we're getting 29 a game, which is the 5th most in the league. We're shooting 31% on those. The only teams that are worse are San Antonio, could be a real brickfest tonight, who's at 29%, and Philadelphia, who's at 31%. So we are getting the fifth most catch and shoot threes. That's kind of, those are the most efficient shots. Obviously, 13 corner threes the other night. Will Hardy talked about that. We talked about that as a massive improvement. That's something we've got to do. Our pull-up three-point shooting, we're shooting 19% on off-the-bounce three-point shots right now. That's not going to last. That's insanity that's that low. We're 2 for 9 on average on a given night. That's Keyonte and Jordan. So that's going to get better. But yes, we've got to get better offensively. We can't be 6 points worse than everyone else. But the path that when I did points gained earlier this year and was a little bit more optimistic is not as optimistic as the year goes on to what I anticipated us seeing in that regard. So I do think the offense comes. Now, one of the things Will Hardy talked about was trying to get Key off the ball to get him started. And Key getting started is probably the most vital. Ben Anderson of KSL Sports had a note that Key's got the worst start anybody in 4 games in NBA history other than Jimmy Jackson when he was with the Atlanta Hawks. And the neat thing there was I had no memory that Jimmy Jackson ever played for the Atlanta Hawks. So that was fun to know. Of Jimmy Jackson's like 13 teams he played for in his career. And he ended up having a half decent year, though that was on the back end of his career. So the first and most important one is getting Key going, right? Like we said when the year started that 30 games was our mark. I think we're going to have to move that. And getting Key off the ball may help him a little bit to get started. The problem is we don't have anyone who naturally can be on the ball. Colin, we're trying it a little bit with the second unit the other night, but it stagnated, and you could tell after the game Will was not in love with that. And Jordan can do it a little bit. Jordan's really struggling, though. I'm a bit concerned on Jordan Clarkson right now that his legs have not come out of training camp ready. He just looks short on every three-point shot. And so I don't entirely know how we get Lowry. This is where like a Kelly Olynyk really would help because you could run him a little bit as the fulcrum of the offense and then get Key coming off things. We don't really have that. I don't think Kyle Filipowski's quite ready for that after having one good game. So some of these things are structurally going to be hard to get Key the opportunity to get going offensively. But frankly, the two things that have to kind of happen for us to go offensively is Jordan's got to get his legs back under him. He's coming off his single worst three-point shooting year of his career at 29%. And right now he's lower than that. And hope that the front rimming of everything isn't just that it's over. Like it does happen. Like I don't think Jordan's at an age where it's just over like that, but when it does, and it is over like that, it is over like that. And then the other one is how do we get Key some looks that aren't manufactured, that he's getting off of other people's actions and doing that. That's probably the key for him, pun intended, a little bit. All right, what's wrong with Victor Wembanyama? The dominant second-year player is not dominant as the Spurs come to town and their offense is struggling almost as much as ours. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Thanks so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. If you haven't caught it, new Locked on NBA game night after every single game, as well as and then a daily conversation show. All right, I'm going to show you something here. On those of you on YouTube, on audio, it will not negatively impact you, I promise. But last year, there was something really interesting with Victor Wembanyama that was his shot chart. And Victor Wembanyama's shot chart last year as a rookie was all over the map. And it was either one of two things. If there was any other coach other than Greg Popovich, your answer would be like, they have no structure. What are they doing?
The rebound that Edwards are.
The other angle would have been that Greg, if you're going to give Greg Popovich the benefit of the doubt because he's Greg Popovich, you would decide that what he's doing is he's giving him the opportunity to try all spots on the floor. So I don't even know if you're on the phone or something. This is probably big, but if you look at Victor last year and you look at his heat map, there is no heat map. In other words, on the mid-right block, he took 60 shots. And on the mid-left block, he took 54. And on the left wing, he took 33 shots. And on the right wing, he took 31. In the middle, he took 32. There was absolutely no There was no narrowing down of his shot chart at all. If he took 134 left side threes, 108 right side threes, and 128 down the middle. It honestly, from my standpoint, it didn't seem to make sense. Like, why? There was no spots. He was just getting the ball wherever he wanted, shooting. There was no structure to the offense. I would have thought you wanted to structure him down a bit. So my expectation this year was
at 20 years of age in his second season.
San Antonio Spurs narrow down his shot chart a little bit, and he would then have more success. So right now he's not shooting it well. He's 12 of 19 in around the basket at 63%. I can't tell yet what's going on, but if you look, we're maybe beginning to see it. The left side long twos, he's only taken one all year. And on the right side, he's suddenly taken 5. So are we beginning to see them finding spots for him on the floor? It's too early to tell. In the little mid-range shots, he's taken 1 left, 3 middle, 3 right. Not enough shots to tell. He is not shooting it well. Straightaway threes, he's 1 for 8. Right side threes, he's 0 for 6. Left side threes, he's 3 for 7. So some of this just might be that Victor's not shooting it well yet. But the other question to me is whether or not they're beginning to narrow down for spots for Victor. And the reason, we talked about this with Keyonte last year, his shot chart was all over the map to start the year as a rookie. He just had no idea where he was getting his shots. The difference with Victor is that he can get his shots from anywhere at any moment, at any time, at 7'5" with an 8-foot standing reach. It's just absolutely incredible. Fundamentally, he's not doing a lot differently. He's playing the exact same amount of minutes. His points he's creating by his points and his assists is down from 30 to 21. That's pretty significant. His shooting percentage is way down, but his amount of threes is the same. His free throw attempts are the same. He's just not making shots right now. His shots that are assisted is down. His percentage of points coming at the free throw line is up. He's getting nothing in transition right now. So that might be really the biggest difference, is that last year he got 12% of his points in fast break, and right now he's getting 3% of his points in fast break. And the other thing that is worth, and he's drawing just 6 fouls, which is right on last year. The other one that's interesting is his layup dunk rate. Percentage of field goal attempts that were layups or dunks. A year ago was 38%. Right now is 32%. So he's getting a few. He's just not getting, I think it's as simple, and it'll be easily solved with some good coaching, is he literally is just not getting the same amount of easy baskets. I would guess if we kind of dig into his shot chart and some of his numbers and his maps and where he is, that it's, 4 of 20 from above the break 3 is off, right? That's 20%. Last year he shot 32%. So that's one or two shots a game is him missing a 3. But he's just also not getting on the rim as many times as he used to. And he's not and the layup and dunk rate could be related to the fact he's not getting fast break opportunities as well. So those two may be the exact same thing, but that's the impact here of what's going on with Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs teams are also giving him much less space, and the Spurs have played Dallas, Houston twice, and Oklahoma City. That's pretty ferocious defensive teams, right? Houston's very, very physical, getting into you, gonna bother you. Currently, they've played the Spurs, so they are the 7th best defensive team in the league. Oklahoma City's 6 points better than anyone else in the league defensively. So there might be some of that where they've just had a really tough schedule against matchups that are not very forgiving to them yet on whether or not. And so tonight will be interesting on a back end of a back-to-back. There is some discussion. Is he tired from Europe and this and that and tired from the Olympics? There's really no track record that shows that those experiences make a player less efficient the next year. In fact, the track record shows the opposite. So I have some doubts on it. All right, few thoughts for you. By the way, the Warriors just beat the Pelicans twice without Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins, which leads to, are you worried? So I'm a little worried on the New Orleans Pelicans that while they're missing some guys, there's DeJounte Murray, namely, and Trey Murray III, they're 28th in the league offensively right now. That seems a little alarming to me, that they're 28th in the league offensively. Okay? That's the first one I'm a little worried about. Numbers are early, but these are the numbers you want to see. The Milwaukee Bucks are ranked 22nd in the league defensively right now. That worries me a little bit. I don't see that as something that turns around. That was the bugaboo when they got Dame Lillard instead of Drew Holiday a year ago that everyone's forgotten about, that they were going to be less good defensively. What's weird is they're not very good offensively right now. That's probably fixable. They're 14th offensively. They're 22nd defensively. So on those two teams, I might worry a little bit for those two reasons. Memphis is off to a not very good start considering all the excitement around him. I think that just might be legitimate that roster is not what everyone thought it was. It's a bunch of mid-level teams that are just not starting as well as they want. Memphis is 23rd in the league offensively, despite bringing in their coach from Paris, who was going to change everything after Taylor Jenkins fired their coaching staff. And the other one that's interesting is a team that just doesn't look very good right now is Miami. They always seem to turn it around. The one thing on Miami, they can't rebound at all right now. They're allowing opponents 33% offensive rebounding rate. I think they'll fix that. So that's the one that jumps out to me, that Miami will be able to fix that. Once Miami fixes that, then they'll go from where they are right now defensively of 13th, probably to top 10 and start to winning games. So I don't think Miami's a title contender, but I don't think they're bad. They have a statistical anomaly that looks wrong. So I think they'll get it right. So just a few quick thoughts around the NBA. I have not gotten to late game watch yet. I'm letting you down on that. We'll get to those as the season goes on. I promise, I think. It is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast in the Utah Jazz. Thank you so much for sticking with me for 31 minutes. So now take a second and please subscribe and follow the show on YouTube. Hit that bell button so you're notified whenever we start. And please take a moment to go subscribe to the Locked on Jazz daily newsletter. We're trailing Nick Angstead, and we got to catch him. So go do it now. I don't want to lose to Nick Angstead and Locked on Mavericks. We got to win something this year. So let's go do that at Locked on Jazz. Locked on Daily. Sign up for Locked on Jazz. Now on video, we'll send you the first ever national 24 sports channel, Locked on Sports Today. Next week, it'll be an NBA channel. And check out Locked on NBA if you're on audio. Have a great day.